Holding the legal papers that ended both my career partnership and my marriage felt surprisingly light compared to the heavy lies I had carried for years. Sitting in the cold corporate boardroom that morning, I watched my life work broadcast on a massive screen under someone else's name. 4 months of brutal midnight shifts and relentless financial modeling were being presented by a woman who had not written a single line of the strategy. The absolute silence in that room was suffocating, but I sat perfectly still as the ultimate betrayal played out right in front of me. My husband Vance was the chief operating officer, and he had personally handed my complete urban revitalization project to his former college sweetheart, Chloe. Chloe had returned from an overseas assignment just as our company began evaluating candidates for a major executive promotion. Vance convinced himself that Chloe needed a high profile win to cement her position, so he quietly stripped my name off the official master deck late the night before the presentation. When I confronted him in our kitchen, he brushed my anger aside, claiming we were a team and that titles on cardboard folders did not matter. I had sacrificed my health, missed family gatherings, and survived on 3 hours of sleep a night to build that multi-billion-dollar proposal from scratch. The renewal plan was the crown jewel of our entire firm, designed to secure massive municipal incentives and major private equity backing. Vance knew how much this project meant to my career, yet he willingly sacrificed my professional reputation to elevate another woman. Watching Chloe stand at the front of the room in her designer suit, holding the presentation clicker like a trophy, made my blood run cold. Chloe opened her speech with a practiced smile, reciting the introductory notes with a smooth, shallow confidence that barely hid in her complete lack of operational knowledge. She parroted complex corporate jargon that I had specifically deleted from earlier drafts because it sounded expensive without offering any real substance. Vance had restored those empty phrases during his final review, proving once again that he favored flashy optics over actual strategic depth. The board members sat around the long glass table in complete silence, their expressions impossible to read as the slick presentation continued. As Chloe advanced to the financial projection slides, the energy in the room shifted subtly. The senior investment directors and legal counsel began watching her with sharp, analytical eyes, realizing very quickly that her vocal tone did not match the deep complexity of the data on screen. Chloe had only been back with the firm for 6 weeks, and her sudden authority over such a massive initiative raised quiet suspicion among the veteran executives. Vance sat near the front, keeping his face composed, but I could see the dangerous tension tightening around his jawline. The disaster unfolded when Chloe clicked to the customer acquisition model and suddenly stumbled over the underlying math. She stammered through a sentence about capital loops before freezing completely, staring blindly at the screen as 2 agonizing seconds of silence stretched across the room. The slide detailed complex relationships between tenant absorption rates and early capital recovery milestones, requiring an intimate understanding of the custom code behind our financial software. Chloe possessed zero knowledge of that architecture, and her pale face betrayed her complete panic. Vance shot a sharp, commanding glare in my direction, silently ordering me to step in and rescue his mistress from total humiliation. The room grew completely motionless as the aging chairman, Arthur, leaned forward and demanded a clear explanation of how those specific weighting metrics were calculated. Vance gestured toward me with a tight, desperate smile, announcing to the entire board that I could easily clarify the figures for everyone. The whole room turned to look at me, waiting for me to play the dutiful wife and fix their mess. I slowly stood up from my seat in the 3rd row, adjusting my jacket and looking Arthur directly in the eye. With absolute calm in my voice, I stated that since my name was nowhere on the document, I was not authorized to explain the underlying mechanics of a project that belonged entirely to Chloe. The room fell into a stunned silence as Arthur frowned, looking down at his printed agenda and then back at the trembling presenter. Chloe dropped her clicker onto the podium, completely unable to answer a single follow-up question. That single moment triggered an immediate internal audit ordered directly by the board of directors. Within 48 hours, corporate forensic investigators traced the digital footprint of the master files straight back to my personal hard drive, proving beyond a doubt that the work had been stolen. The evidence revealed that Vance had accessed my secure server at midnight to transfer the files to Chloe, fabricating the entire presentation setup. The board acted swiftly, terminating Chloe immediately for corporate fraud and publicly removing Vance from his executive position for cause. The fallout was swift and absolute. destroying the deceptive hierarchy Vance had built at the expense of my hard work. I filed for divorce the very next week, cutting off all personal contact and forcing him to communicate strictly through legal representation. Vance tried sending polished, desperate emails begging for forgiveness and attempting to minimize his actions, but I archived every single message without reading them. Stripping away those toxic relationships allowed me to finally breathe clearly for the first time in years. Recognizing my irreplaceable value and absolute integrity, the board officially appointed me as the new Vice President of Strategic Initiatives. I took full control of the Urban Renewal Project, leading a dedicated team of analysts who actually respected the grit and detail required for real success. We worked tirelessly to prepare for the official launch, refining every financial projection and securing every major investor without needing to cut corners or steal credit from anyone else. Months later, I stood under a crisp winter sky at the official groundbreaking ceremony for the multi-billion-dollar development. Microphones and news cameras lined the stage as investors, municipal leaders, and my dedicated team cheered from the front row. Addressing the crowd as the newly appointed vice president, I spoke with a resonant certainty that came from owning every single step of my journey. Looking out at the heavy machinery pouring the concrete foundation, I knew that my career was no longer built on someone else's terms. Standing on that open field, I smiled as the sound of genuine applause filled the cold afternoon air. The painful betrayal that was meant to erase my name had instead forged the path to my greatest professional triumph. I had reclaimed my worth, secured my rightful place at the top, and built a future that would never require me to shrink for anyone else again. If you enjoyed this story and want to see how the truth always comes out in the end, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into real-life drama, high-stakes betrayals, and ultimate comeback stories.